Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am not here today to talk about vaccine passports, so you can breathe a sigh of relief if you are watching this. Today I would like to talk a little bit about race because I haven't received enough hate already. I need a little bit more. I understand that this is a sensitive topic always, especially right now. And I am not coming on to talk about it because I want to jump on the bandwagon or add to the noise. I actually started this channel with the intention of speaking about many things, race being one of them. Because like I mentioned, if you watched my first video, the reason I started this channel is that last year I experienced a political shift. I didn't get into specifics in that video, but I think you can read between the lines. I walked away from the Democrat Party that I had followed my whole life last year in 2020. And I did that not because I was looking for a reason to walk away. I never thought I would. Or because I was bored, or because I got radicalized on the internet, or because I have hatred in my heart or something like that. I never thought it would happen. Obama in 2008 was the first presidential election, or any election really, that I was eligible to vote for. And I remember voting for him and being very excited about it. Honestly, I don't know if I voted in 2012. I don't remember, but if I did vote at all, it was for Obama. In 2016, I drove 40 miles one way, so 80 miles round trip, essentially, solely to vote for Clinton. I stupidly was still registered in my home county as opposed to my current county, although I had lived in my current county for several years at that point. So I had to drive in order to vote if I wanted to vote that day. And I'll be honest, I was not super politically informed. I do believe that, I'm checking to make sure I don't have lipstick on my teeth. I do believe that I did not fill out anything else on that ballot except for Clinton, because I wasn't politically informed. I kind of just parroted what I saw on my Facebook feed and what I heard from my friends and what I heard from headlines, because it seemed like, oh, it must make sense. That seems like it's right. I've always been a Democrat and I believe all of this. So I wasn't, the staunchest Democrat in the world, in that I was really politically informed. But I believed that I was, I believed in the party, even though I wasn't necessarily very informed. So what I'm trying to say is that I never thought that I would walk away, because I really believed that it was the right side to be on. And I am not here to tell you that it's not the right side to be on today. I'm not here to tell you that there is a right side to be on. But there were two reasons that I can see in 2020 that made me, or that caused me to walk away, caused me to choose to walk away. And those were the response to COVID and BLM, or the response to BLM. Forgive me if I speak slowly in this video. I am trying to tread lightly and really make sure that I'm intentional with what I say. This is the first time that I don't really have any notes. I don't really have any sources, because I'm not necessarily speaking about anything I've researched. I'm speaking about my own experience today. And not all of it is my own story to share. So I want to be careful just what I say on all fronts. When everything shut down last year, it was really difficult for me. And that feels asinine to say because it was really difficult for everyone. But I grew up in a family that still struggles to this day, financially and economically. My parents are, and forgive me, I will probably get teary-eyed during this a little bit, but I'm going to try to keep it under control. Because I hate to, I don't necessarily love to watch teary-eyed videos, and I want to be strong in what I say and persuasive, and I don't want to make anyone watch me get teary-eyed. So I'm going to try to keep it under wraps. My parents are wonderful people. They are the best people. They raised 3 amazing individuals, and they have worked really hard my entire life, and it hasn't always worked out. And I say this with the understanding that if I had been born into or lived in a different geographic part of the country, maybe our economic status wouldn't have been as big of a deal as it was. I was born and raised in a pretty wealthy part of Southern California. And so comparatively, that means something. If I had been born and raised in the middle of the country, it might have been a different story. And I believe that we are all insanely privileged to be born in this country. All of us, every single one of us. We are in, the top percentage of the globe just by being in this country alone. And I'm also very privileged to be born into the geographic area that I was born into. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any other geographic areas, but what I'm trying to say is I'm not criticizing the area I was born into, but in this area, my family and I struggled economically, and we still do. And my parents have worked hard my whole life. There wasn't always a ton of money for things. It was things like, growing up, we didn't necessarily go to like a dentist. I never went to an orthodontist, and I used to get made fun of for my teeth. And again, like I understand, had I grown up in another area where going to the orthodontist wasn't the norm necessarily, and everybody didn't do it, that wouldn't have been the case. So I don't want to say, I had it so rough because I couldn't go to the orthodontist, but it was just, there were things other people had that I didn't necessarily have. I've been working since I was either 16 or 17, nonstop. And I mean, as it should be, I'm not saying that I did anything great there up until last year when I was unemployed for the first time in my life, and still largely am. I have temporary jobs here and there. I'm working a temporary job right now, but my family has just always struggled. My mom, she worked in a restaurant. Her parents owned a pretty successful restaurant for a time. She worked in a restaurant. She met my dad there. She didn't take the road for higher education, and she was a mom mostly, and she was a great mom. And she worked at Walmart sometimes when I was younger. And I've just always been, I guess what I'm trying to say, really aware of money. And I kind of have this idea that money's hard to get. And in order to get it, you have to work really hard, and you have to work at jobs you hate, and money doesn't come easily, and you better hang on to it, and that kind of thing. I've been working my whole life since I was 16 or 17, and I've never worked a job I didn't hate. I don't say that for sympathy. I know it's sadly the norm for a lot of people, but I worked really hard, and me and my family, we haven't necessarily, had things super easy. Things don't necessarily always work out for us. For me, I haven't been lucky in career. I haven't been lucky in love and relationships necessarily, relationships of any kind. I'm sure a lot of that is my own doing, my own fault. I've never felt, maybe it is, some of it is, oh, I need to change my thinking, possibly, you know, but I've never felt as though things come easy to me. And the successes that I do feel I've achieved, which I do feel are few and far between, mostly I feel like a failure, to not to put too fine a point on it. The successes that I do feel as though I've achieved, they have not come easy to me at all. And I say all this with the understanding that so many people, countless people, both in this country and abroad, have it far worse than I do, you know? So please understand that anything I'm saying in this video, please take it with a grain of salt. It is not, I'm not trying to share my sob story, but I want to share with you where I came from, where that led me in 2020, and where I'm at right now, and where many people are at, I believe. So my family's always struggled. You know, we've always all worked very hard. It's never really come easy to us, but we've had a lot of love, and we have each other, and we're all good people. In 2019, things got pretty rough. My parents weren't able to necessarily keep up with the rent that they had. They'd been living in this place for 10 years, and they were asked to leave, and they didn't have a lot of time to move out. And there were issues with finding another place because of credit, and that kind of thing. It was difficult. And for a time there, you know, I was worried. We were all kind of worried that my parents maybe wouldn't have a place to go. And there were issues with my dad being like an independent contractor, and, you know, regular paychecks that you couldn't necessarily rely on. There were issues, you know, and I had to kind of step up and help my parents kind of significantly financially. And I wish I had done it more graciously now, looking back on it. But it was difficult for me because I was a waitress, and I had already given up my dream of acting a long time ago for lots of reasons. But one of them was that I was afraid to request off work, not because I was helping my parents necessarily, but just because I felt like, oh, money is hard to get, and I have worked my way up in this restaurant, and I have the best shifts, and I have the most shifts, and if I request off for a gig or an audition or something, I can't do that. I need money. I'm getting money here. I'm getting more money than I've ever gotten in my life, and I just need to hang on to this. So I had already like made it to where these restaurant jobs that I had were my life. And the only thing I felt proud of in my life in 2019 was the fact that I had this money saved. And now my parents, you know, they kind of needed some of it, and they weren't demanding it, but it was hard for me to give, because I felt like, oh, I won't be able to get it back. And I gave it, and I wish that I had given it more graciously. But we all kind of rallied together as best we could and helped my parents out. And so that was in late of 2019. And then obviously 2020 happened. And it was really a shock to me. It was a shock to everyone, of course, but I had felt like here I am taking the right path, the safe path, and doing everything correct. You know, I'm not being silly and going on auditions or whatever. And not to be offensive to anyone who's going to auditions, but I thought I'm a skilled waiter. I'm always going to have this to fall back on. I made a decent amount of money. I never requested off. I never recalled out. I thought, you know, even if things went south at this restaurant for some reason, I live in a city, there's a million restaurants, and anywhere I go, I'm going to be one of the best servers in that restaurant. And even though I hated working in this restaurant, I was so burnt out on the restaurant industry and the culture and everything. I always had it in the back of my mind, like, oh, someday I'll leave, but I'm always going to have this to fall back on. And then of course in 2020, that went away. And I didn't know if, sorry, I know that was probably loud. I didn't know if it was going to come back or when it would come back or how it would come back. In some ways, I still don't totally know in the city I'm at, if it's coming back or if it's ever coming back in the way that it was. So it was really scary for me, and it was scary, for my family. And this is part of why I've spoken the way that I've spoken in previous videos. And I've gotten a little bit personal, but not too much. Because the lockdowns, however justified they were at the beginning, I no longer feel they're justified currently. I believe they were justified in the beginning. They have harmed my family. And my parents are at a high risk for negative outcomes of COVID. They're also at a high risk if you lock them down and prevent them from being able to work. They don't necessarily have a lot of savings or anything like that. And they're not in the minority in America. And the lockdowns affected my ability because even though it was hard for me to give my parents that money, and I wish that it hadn't been hard, my biggest dream is to be able to, give them everything they need, whether they need it or not. I just want to give them things. I want to provide for them for the rest of their lives. And that is like, oh, if I could do one thing, that is the thing that I want to do. Forgive me. That always makes me teary. I knew that was going to make me teary, but that is my one goal. If I could do one thing, and it's not because they need it. Even if they didn't need it, I just want to give my parents things and take care of them. So the lockdowns affected my ability to help them, if they did need it again, or they had just needed it in 2019. So I have seen the lockdowns harm me and harm my family and harm, my community, because this is not a unique thing to my family. My mom, prior to the lockdowns, I mentioned in another video, on March 9th, I had helped her write a cover letter for a job she really wanted and a job she really needed on March 9th of 2020. And of course, that job went away. They were no longer hiring, obviously, because the world shut down like 5 days later. And, when you're in my mom's case and you're looking for work for a long time and you've been looking, and then the shutdowns happen and they go on for 13 months now and counting, that makes it difficult if you are someone who's looking for a job. It makes it difficult, for people who have jobs. My father's industry was very much affected by this, and my parents, because of different reasons, were only eligible for a very low amount of EDD every week. My parents just kind of slipped through the cracks, and the reason I'm saying this is because it's not unique to my parents. It is an issue with a large majority of Americans. And so when I saw the lockdowns continue to happen last year, and it was hurting me and my family so much. And this isn't even to say anything like of the psychological and emotional effects, but I'm just talking about like pure finance and putting food on the table. And then, I saw Florida kind of open in the summer, and then more states, they were usually red states, opened, and then it was largely, not always, but largely blue states that were still shut down and are still shut down. It made me question for the first time the Democrat Party, because I saw in my city all these obscene, outrageous rules. I saw signs. I don't know if a cop ever actually did do it, but there were signs in one neighborhood that, you get a fine if you're out walking without a mask, just walking without a mask in the fresh air. When we know you don't get it outside, like there have been almost no cases traceable back to not wearing a mask outside, let alone just not wearing a mask on the sidewalk and passing some people, no virus have we ever gotten really just from passing. So, there were rules in my city about wearing masks outdoors, and then there were, oh, it's safe to eat outdoors, oh, it's not, all the restaurants are going to be shut down again right before the holidays. There has never been any scientific basis for the fact that outdoor dining is unsafe. And I'm not going to make this a COVID video, but and then outdoor dining was open again, but no like televisions because we don't want you sitting in the outdoor dining. I mean, just these little nitpicking, insane rules in my city. And I have seen, you know, in the meantime, the homeless population get incredibly large, the homeless situation get worse. People are out of work. People are desperate. And then my city continues to make these very strange rules like tit for tat and just things that are not even scientifically based. And it was really tough to deal with. And every single time that I have questioned the lockdowns, even slightly, I get told that I'm selfish. And I get told that I am, to some extent, ignoring the dangers of the pandemic because I think that it won't affect me. I mean, I have been told that so many times, and I'm going to be honest because this is my channel and I'm not going to censor myself here. YouTube will do that for me. I believe that if I looked different, people wouldn't be calling me selfish while I was questioning the lockdowns. Unfortunately, I hate that we're here. I hate that I think this way, but I think that people look at me and they see white and they see slim or healthy looking and they see young-ish. And they see, oh, she looks like she takes care of herself. And they think, okay, she has no problems, so she's just complaining. I've seen so many times this rhetoric, oh, you know, it's a bunch of white people. It's a bunch of Trump supporters complaining that they can't go get their hair and nails done. No. It's people of all colors who were told they were not essential for an entire year and counting. And they want to be able to work. And in fact, they need to be able to work. And you can argue that maybe we need to like overhaul the whole system to where you don't need to work. I would argue against that. But regardless, that's not where we're at right now. People do need to work. And you can't just take away millions of jobs and then say, oh, it's wealthy white people complaining that they can't go get their nails done. Well, when you can't go get your nails done because the nail salons are closed, who do you think that affects besides the wealthy white people? Who owns and operates nail salons? And in the meantime, nail salons are some of the cleanest, most reputable places, regardless. Even before the pandemic, even before we had all these restrictions, nail salons are incredibly clean, incredibly efficient, incredibly, conscious of hygiene. And we had our governor claiming without any basis that the first case in California came from a nail salon. I mean, it just doesn't make sense because we have all this talk about caring for immigrants and caring for minorities. And then we do crazy things like this. Democrats do crazy things like this that actually hurts the people that they claim to care about. So it is incredibly insensitive to call someone selfish or to tell someone that they are ignoring the dangers of a pandemic, or to claim that the whole issue here is that white people can't go out and get their hair and nails done, or they can't go out to party or something like that. You can agree with the lockdowns if you seriously and genuinely agree. That's fine. We're all entitled to our opinions. But to jump to selfish is crazy. And I have no basis for thinking that if I looked different, people wouldn't have said that. It's just a hypothesis. But it has killed me every time I've heard it. And I maybe I need to grow a thicker skin, especially now that I've started to be even more vocal. I probably really do need to grow a thicker skin. Because you don't know me and you don't know my family and you don't know people like me. This is not exclusive to my family for any color. And are you going to pay, my bills? Are you going to pay my parents' bills – while you're sitting there calling me selfish? it's this black and white thinking that really, really gets me. And it leaves me out of the equation, and it leaves my family out of the equation, and it leaves people like me out of the equation. Because yes, probably there were some people protesting the lockdowns because, you know, they don't care about people and they just want to go do whatever they want to do. That's their right. But that's not everybody. You don't even bother to listen to people's stories at all before you jump right to calling them selfish or racist or a Nazi or a white supremacist or whatever it is, a Trump supporter, whatever it is that we call people now, which is all those things and more. So my point in getting to all this is that the lockdowns and absolutely zero regard for how they were affecting people. And then, every once in a while, there'd be a $1,400 stimulus check. I don't care what president you are. I don't care what administration. That is not a COVID relief bill. That is not helping. That is a finite amount of money that does not significantly help people. Now, of course, $1,400 is a fair amount of money. And if you found that on the street, you wouldn't toss it away. But that is a Band-Aid solution to a crazy problem that actually you kind of created by shutting things down. If you just let people, especially younger, healthier people who don't have risk for negative outcomes from COVID, get back to work and get back to their lives, you don't need to be offering them stimulus money. And then, of course, we know people got stimulus money who never even lost their jobs. And I understand the money was to stimulate the economy, but if you've never lost your job and you've been working for most of this whole time, you don't need additional money to stimulate the economy. So I'm not going to get into all that, but the extended lockdowns in largely blue states, in largely blue cities, with zero regard for how they are harming people, just regular average people who maybe don't have savings or whatever it is, which is the majority of people. We've all heard, I'll have to look up the statistic, but it's a large percentage of Americans who can't even afford a $400 emergency if it comes up. They would have to go into debt to pay for a $400 emergency because it's not in their account, their bank account. So, you tell me, is it a bunch of wealthy white people complaining about the lockdowns, or is it people who can't even afford a $400 emergency if it comes up? And maybe we should listen to those people. So that was the first thing that caused me to go, I don't know if I like my officials. I don't know if I like these people from my party that I've identified with. And then, hi everyone, just real quick, jumping on to say that this video, which, I just hit the mic, sorry. Someday I'll get the hang of this, but probably not anytime soon. This video, which thank you so much for just watching, if you watched, I assume you did because you're at the end, was originally meant to be part of a longer video. Well, I didn't realize it was going to be so long. I recorded it in its entirety. It ended up being almost an hour. So I thought I'd cut it and split it into two parts. So that's why it's ending kind of abruptly. If you watch this and it was at all compelling to you in any way, whether you agree or disagree or it bothers you in some way, please watch the second if you're so inclined. It was shot as one video, so it was meant to all go together. Neither part really stands alone, but I just didn't want to ask anyone to watch an hour-long video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will post part 2 soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.